What if the most powerful force in history was trust? For centuries, wealth meant something solid: gold, silver, weight in the hand. A king's fortune glittered in vaults, not on parchment, but one idea would fracture that certainty forever. What if value could be written, not mined? A single stroke of ink could summon treasure from thin air. It sounded impossible until the world tried it. The first empire to replace metal with faith thought it had discovered perfection. Instead, it had opened a door it could never close. Because once money becomes imagination, who decides what's real? That question would haunt every civilization that followed. The answer begins quietly in the markets of ancient China, where merchants traded silk and accidentally invented belief. What they didn't know was that belief, once printed, can never be controlled, and the cost of that discovery would echo for 1,000 years. The Song dynasty pulsed with trade, a world alive with coins and caravans, but wealth was heavy, and greed was growing faster than silver could flow. Merchants were tired of dragging fortune on their backs, so they began to trade promises instead. A slip of paper, a written vow, lighter than metal, stronger than memory. At first, it was convenience. Then it became belief. These flying cash notes moved faster than armies. People began to trust ink more than iron. The government watched, intrigued, and envious. Imagine controlling money with no minds, no limits. The emperor seized the idea and stamped his seal of power. Paper became law, and law became money. But each note carried a silent question. How much trust can an empire print? When belief replaces gold, collapse is only a breath away, and that breath was already gathering in the emperor's halls. With a brush and seal, the emperor created wealth at will. No digging, no conquest, just decree. He had turned paper into power, but power, once limitless, consumes itself. The treasury overflowed with notes that bought less each month. Farmers complained, merchants whispered, and soldiers demanded more pay. The emperor printed again, and again each new note bought loyalty, for a little while, until even loyalty inflated into dust. Markets drowned in worthless paper, gold vanished from sight. The same invention that fueled prosperity now devoured it. The empire learned that money without restraint is fire without walls, and when fire burns belief, only ashes of value remain, yet the idea refused to die. Because somewhere, another ruler was watching and waiting to try again. Kublai Khan conquered China and inherited its strangest treasure, paper money. He saw not disaster, but destiny. All payments shall be made in paper, he commanded, and the world obeyed. Merchants trembled, soldiers cheered, printers worked day and night. Every note bore the seal of the great Khan, a promise backed by fear. And for a while, it worked. Markets flourished, taxes flowed, and the empire swelled with artificial wealth. But belief ruled this empire, not armies. Foreign traders began to doubt. Whispers spread of false value. What happens when fear fades faster than ink? Prices exploded, faith collapsed, and the Mongol treasury turned to dust. The first global experiment in forced trust had failed. Even Marco Polo wrote of it, marveling at the miracle, mourning the madness. Kublai Khan could conquer nations, but not disbelief. And once trust was gone, so was his empire. After the Mongols fell, the world recoiled from paper. Gold reclaimed its throne, kingdoms chained their wealth in vaults again. For a time, the illusion slept, but ideas, like debts, never die. In the markets of Venice and Florence, whispers returned. What if trust could move faster than metal? Letters of credit, bills of exchange, promises dressed as parchment. The dream of weightless wealth was stirring once more. Bankers replaced kings as keepers of faith. And belief, that fragile thread, began weaving Europe's fortunes the East had imagined it. The West would perfect it. Because soon, even kings would bow to paper. And when they did, the modern world and its endless debts would be born, but that too would come at a price no empire could afford. In the marble halls of Florence, men without crowns began to rule. Their weapons were not swords, but signatures. The Medici family discovered that power could flow on ink, every loan, every ledger, every promise, another step away from gold. Their books glowed with the illusion of infinite wealth. Kings now borrowed what they once conquered. The church called it sin. The bankers called it innovation. Coins turned to credit, and morality bent beneath profit. Europe was entering a new religion, the worship of numbers. Every believer thought they'd found salvation, but faith in money always ends the same way, with betrayal. Behind each fortune was a name, a debt, and a ticking clock. The Medici rose faster than any dynasty before them. Yet their empire was built on something no vault could hold: trust. And trust, once cracked, spreads like fire through paper. Goldsmiths in London discovered a secret even the Medicis missed. When people stored gold in their vaults, they rarely asked for it back. So why not lend it out, twice or 10 times? Thus was born the ghost of money, fractional reserve banking. Real gold became irrelevant. Only receipts mattered now. The alchemy was perfect, creating wealth from absence. Every deposit spawned another illusion. People believed the paper was the gold. Until one day, too many asked to see what wasn't there. Panic spread, and vaults emptied overnight. The first bank run, a reminder that illusions don't run deep. Yet the system survived because the world wanted the dream more than the truth. Bankers learned the lesson well. If people believe the promise, you'll never need the proof. And soon, those promises would build empires and destroy them. By the 1700s, Europe's kings had found a new way to fight wars, with debt. The Bank of England was born not from peace, but desperation. It lent the crown money it didn't have, backed by taxes not yet collected. Paper wealth financed cannons, ships, and glory. The empire expanded on invisible foundations. London's traders became high priests of a new order. Each bond was a promise that tomorrow would repay today. But promises are fragile when built on ambition. Inflation, crisis, and rebellion followed in the shadows. Yet every collapse birthed a new excuse to print more. The empire had discovered the secret of modern power: control debt, and you control destiny. But the debt was growing faster than the empire itself. And across the sea, a colony was about to revolt, against both the king and his currency. The first paper revolution was about to begin. In 1775, the American colonies faced a problem older than war itself: money. They had none. So they printed it. The continental dollar promised unity and independence, but as the presses ran, value vanished. The phrase, "not worth a continental," became a nation's first economic lesson. Freedom was expensive. Belief was fragile. Yet from those ashes rose a dangerous understanding. A nation didn't need gold, just trust. The idea that began in ancient China had reached the New World, and the New World would soon make it global. The Founding Fathers learned, power lies not in paper, but in who prints it. That idea would shape the next 2 centuries of empire, because the real war was never for land. It was for control of the money that defined it, and one nation would master that art more than any other. The United States grew on faith, not in gods, but in credit. Banks multiplied, railroads expanded, and speculation became a national sport. Each boom was built on borrowed tomorrow. Paper became the pulse of progress, but every pulse ends with a crash. The Panic of 1837, a reminder that wealth printed on dreams fades overnight. Still, the hunger for growth only grew stronger. The Civil War gave birth to greenbacks, another experiment in trust. The nation printed its way through blood and fire, and somehow belief survived. By the 1900s, the dollar had become the language of power, but the world was about to speak it, at a cost no one foresaw. As empires burned in 2 world wars, America found itself holding the last gold left. The stage was set for the final illusion, and the curtain would rise at Bretton Woods. In 1944, the world lay in ruins, economies shattered. The victors met in New Hampshire to rebuild trust. Their solution: tie every currency to the US dollar and the dollar to gold. Stability, they promised. Order, they declared. The illusion worked beautifully. Dollars flooded the world, rebuilding nations and buying loyalty. But the gold behind them never grew. America was spending faith faster than it could mine reality. By the 1960s, other nations wanted the gold they'd been promised. The vaults couldn't keep up. Panic spread quietly through the halls of power. The illusion cracked, but it wasn't over yet. One man would make the final cut, his name: Richard Nixon. And in 1971, he ended the age of gold forever. August 15th, 1971. The dollar was no longer tied to anything real. For the first time in history, all money became faith. The gold standard was gone. The paper age had begun. Politicians celebrated freedom, from limits, from restraint, from truth. Central banks could now create wealth with a keystroke. The dream that began in China was complete. Value no longer needed gold, it only needed belief. Inflation roared, bubbles rose, and debt became the new gold. Economists called it progress. Historians will call it the Great Delusion. Every empire before had collapsed when money lost meaning. But this time, the illusion went global. For the first time, humanity shared the same dream and the same risk. We had turned paper into power and power into addiction. The only question left was, who would wake up first? After 1971, the world entered a new religion: debt. Governments borrowed endlessly, markets cheered, and banks multiplied money with code. Each crisis was solved by printing more. The fire that once burned empires now fueled them. Credit cards, mortgages, bonds, all belief disguised as wealth. The global economy became a single heartbeat of speculation. Every dollar created demanded another to repay it. Growth became mandatory. Collapse, forbidden nations were trapped in an expanding illusion. And the high priests of this faith wore suits instead of crowns. Central banks became the emperors of the modern age. They printed peace, war, and hope, all with interest. But even gods of money cannot stop disbelief forever. Because once the world questions the promise, the temple falls, and that whisper had already begun. The 2008 financial crisis was more than a crash. It was a revelation. Trillions vanished overnight, yet the printers never stopped. For the first time, people saw the trick. Money wasn't lost. It was imagined. Banks were rescued with promises. Citizens were left with debt. The illusion was exposed, but no one dared end it. Governments doubled down, inflating faith once more. Economies recovered on paper, not in reality. The system survived, but weaker, hungrier. Every solution was another illusion stacked on the last. By the 2020s, digital screens replaced cash entirely. Money had become nothing but numbers, and numbers could lie. People began to ask, if value isn't real, what is? That question was ancient, as old as silk and ink. And once again, humanity was circling back to its beginning. Because the cycle of belief always returns to disbelief. Crypto, NFTs, digital gold, the latest frontier of invisible wealth. Once again, we promise freedom through code, not coin. The blockchain became the new paper, belief encoded in math decentralization, a rebellion against the banker's empire. But history whispers, every revolution becomes a new system of control. Fortunes were made, bubbles burst, faith wavered. The same dream, painted in new symbols. Humanity still chasing meaning through money, only faster. The question is not whether the illusion returns, it's whether we'll recognize it this time. Because every new money carries the same old flaw. It depends on belief, and belief always breaks. We're not witnessing innovation. We're witnessing repetition. And history never repeats without a reason. Today, central banks rule the earth more quietly than kings. A word from the Fed can shake nations. A single percentage point can make or break empires. Money has become policy. Policy has become destiny. Democracy bends to the will of interest rates. Billionaires rise and vanish on invisible tides. The people still work, still save, still believe. But the belief is fading. Inflation eats the promise. Wages chase illusions. Every solution prints more of the problem. The system must grow or collapse. It's no longer economics. It's survival. The paper age is burning at both ends, and once again, the cycle prepares to turn, because every illusion ends the same way, with awakening. In vaults and headlines, whispers of gold rise again. Nations once addicted to paper are hoarding metal. Central banks quietly buying what they once dismissed. The oldest faith of all, tangible value, calls for return. But can a digital generation believe in something heavy again? The answer may decide the next empire. China, Russia, and others are preparing for a world after paper. The West clings to the dollar, the last great illusion. The stage is set for another global rebalancing. The script feels familiar. One side believes in gold, the other in promises. And between them lies history's oldest battlefield, trust. Whoever wins will write the next century's money. Whoever loses will be forgotten beneath its paper. The cycle tightens once again. Every collapse in history has birthed a new system. Rome gave way to feudalism, feudalism to capitalism. Capitalism now strains beneath its own weight. Debt, inflation, inequality, the cracks widen. But collapse is never the end. It's a rebirth disguised as ruin. The next age of money will not be paper or gold, but data programmable, trackable, total. The dream of control finally complete. Yet the danger remains the same. When value becomes obedience, freedom becomes debt. Humanity is writing its next illusion in code. The only question is who will own the pen. Empires fall, but the idea survives. Because money is not about wealth, it's about belief, and belief, once again, is being rewritten. Look back, and the pattern is clear. Every civilization replaces gold with trust. Every empire prints too much belief. Every collapse begins with the same whisper. This time is different. But history is never different, only disguised. The same dream that began in ancient China lives in our screens today. The same illusion that crowned kings now crowns algorithms. Humanity, endlessly rich and endlessly deceived. We built temples to money and called them markets. We traded truth for numbers and called it progress. And yet, even knowing the pattern, we repeat it. Because what we're really chasing isn't wealth, it's meaning and the illusion that we control it. The story of money is the story of us, and like us, it always begins with belief and ends in awakening. The world stands once again on the edge of disbelief. Inflation, debt, digital control, all signs of the final stage. But endings are just beginnings in disguise. Every empire's fall clears the path for something new. The question isn't if money will change, it's what we'll believe in next. Maybe it'll be digital, maybe decentralized, maybe spiritual. But one truth will always remain. The value of money is the value we agree to see. When that agreement breaks, the illusion fades, and humanity, once more, looks for meaning beyond numbers. The story that began with merchants and ink ends with algorithms and code, yet through it all, one force endures: belief. Because even when money stops being real, power never does. Well, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the other side.